Actually, we just ran out of tape putting muffler pushers in. Another misplanned adventure, but anyway, I put this 3-bladed prop on here. We're coming up on a stunt forum this weekend, just to make a show prop, and it indicates that the gear will just about clear 12-inch props, but we're going to probably be using more like 11s, realistically. But the paint really did buff out, geez, even a little bit better than I thought. Kind of was looking it over, looking for some extra little polishing I could do just before we get things packed up to go to a stunt forum. And it really is. It's, at this point in time, when I look at the time I've spent on this has probably given me the most bang for the buck of any project I've ever worked on. A very low amount of time got spent actually building it, a lot of time designing it, and overall it's just been one of those projects that I just enjoy a whole lot. There's just no substitute for working on something that you're having a lot of fun doing. The Death Star Nebula. Luke Skywalker, Luke Foam Walker back here, getting ready to cut foam wings, baby. Everybody in the audience is primed and ready.
Foamy one Kenobi.
Foamy one Kenobi.
Okay.
Actually, hey, Ken. No, hey, I gotta tell you, the place looks great. Now, come on, tell me the truth. But look back at the old videos. Place was kind of disorganized. Look at it now.
You should have seen it before we fixed it up.
Oh, before the earthquake. Oh, it looks great. And I gotta tell you, even Scott would be impressed with this. Look at this guy. Look at this. Now, is this... Look at this. There's some real technology going on here, baby. Tell me how many other people had a plane with a Super Tiger 60 published in 1968. Forget it. Dude, forget it. Place looks good. Needs a few more sets of plans, a few more Brodak kits on the wall. Finish up the Nova. Got his own porno movies going on, and of course the B-29. Most of all, the B-29. Well, we're going to follow Kenny through one making of a sweeper ring here.
I don't want to videotape this whole thing. I really would rather...
I know you don't. That's why I'm videotaping it.
No, I'm serious.
How bad can it be? You set the house on fire? What's the big thing?
No, please.
You have time for that.
I'm making a videotape.
Boy, does this bring back memories. Nice little plane. Look at this tank pattern. Have you seen this tank pattern? 15-ounce tank. Look at this, the old tube, we used to put the vents right in the tank. Nobody does that anymore. Look at this flat tail technology. Is this your GB book, Ken? Or is this George's?
The only two copies of the same book. One of them belongs to your wooden player print.
This is the book that Bob Martens loaned us, and I guess we never gave it back, Bob, so we'll be returning it there shortly, within the next millennium. Some nice ideas here. Oh yeah, that's when George was doing that. Oh yeah. We never rest. Now look what I just found in the shop. This is aluminum, a real high-grade aluminum. And I was just thinking about making horns. This is probably a third the weight of, maybe even less. It's super light. This is hollow. Just another thought. Always have to have ideas and thoughts. And this is solid. Maybe coming. Hello, Jimmy Casale. Look at that. You can see you. Jimmy, I don't want to hear them, huh? Fuzzy. Got a Musco Spitfire. Look at that.
It's very cool. It's really good.
If he can't, we'll shoot him. We'll ship him to John Gunn in a box.
Really nice.
I've seen wings from 5-6 other people that aren't even close to being this good. You won't believe this. When you see what I'm going to show you, you won't believe it. Anyway, it's a long, funny story. Rory Tennyson has watched a gazillion of these videos, and he was returning some, and what happened is the box got squashed. He didn't wrap them properly. Anyway, so I sent him out some new tapes, of course, and one of the things he did, he sent a box, which I thought had an elephant in it, but wait till you see what's in this box. Unbelievable. Now here's a picture, and I'll tell you, this is what makes the hobby special. This is Rory on one of his custom, looks like a soft tail Harley, 1340. Anyway, no matter how good or bad of a builder you are, how good of a finisher, it's the friendships you make that last forever. This is just great. Let me go through this. You'll get a big kick out of this. Obviously, nice bike. Nice hat, by the way. Nice picture of Dan Shane, Engine Man, and Rory. Now this is funny. We have not had any snow this year. And I got up this morning, the day I got this package, and I looked outside, and it's on my thermometer, it's under 20 degrees. So if it rains later this week, we'll be doing this. And a stunt form is coming up too. I hope it doesn't snow it out. The picture of Doug Wendt, the famous engine collector. Hey, nice oriental profile. I wonder if that's a Bodak kit. Can't really tell here. Love the snow. Looks like a dog loves the snow too. Now when I opened Rory's package, this was inside, and I thought, oh my God, this guy sent me fish. Bert and Ernie all got to the top of the tank. Said, oh boy, at last we're getting some respect around here. Thanks a lot. Well, Rory, you outdid yourself, I have to tell you. Now check this out. Look at this. I get all kinds of frame pictures. He even sends me the hangers to hang the pictures on. A hat. A nice white hat, too, by the way. Check this shirt out. Nice sweatshirt. Hey, I'm going to wear this afternoon. XL blades. XL hot. He knows where to get his stuff. Some magazines, a nice frame thing for their contest. I love these things. I gotta find a spot in the shop here to put these. They are great. Rory, you're okay. I'm telling you something. And some nice pictures. Hey, look at a Mustang here. Banjack, eat your heart out. A wonderful Christmas present. Hey, this is great. I appreciate it. Thank you very much. Bert and Ernie, thank you. I have to tell you, Rory, it certainly was a challenge finding enough room There's not much room on a wall in this shop, but we got everyone up. Now check this out. You said this is Bert and Ernie's Friends. You were teasing Bert and Ernie. It's not fair. Anyway, I got one right by their cage so they can watch it. Their cage, their tank, cage. I like these pictures, Rory. Thanks a lot. I thought you were sending us fish, Rory. Big fish. Big Ryunkins. It's always a challenge in this shop to find room for anything. These are great. These are really nostalgic. This is what you need in this shop, is to be inspired every morning. This is one of the things really said. This just happens to fit perfect for the Bud McKnight sanding sticks. Just drop right in there. That's a great little tip. And of course, I always put all my blades and things face down, so I don't cut myself any more than I already do. I'm pretty dangerous as it is. Thanks to Rory. Appreciate it a whole lot. Look for your picture and stunt moves. There's a little bit of time I got left here before Kenny gets here. I'm going to go over to the foam shop and work. And I got a couple of wood propellers from John Brodak. I want to take the finish off and try to get a couple of coats of paint on. The thing we don't know, see, we're not sure. I made this plane so it would clear. This really wouldn't clear because I got the tail up in here. So it would clear a 12-inch prop, but what I really probably am going to wind up using is an 11-inch. And I got a selection of two blades that I want to try. 10-6 top flights that from John Brodak's personal collection, and I also got a bunch of these oddball sizes of 11.4s and 11.5s. I only have 3 of them here that I want to paint right now, but I want to get them started. And ultimately, what I think is a good idea is if you're really interested in prop technology, check out the 2 prop videos. Meantime, we're just going to spend a couple of minutes getting these painted up, and maybe then get over to the foam shop and see what we can do over there. Now, these are the only ones I have in stock here, and I have a bunch of these. These, I think, are going to work real well, especially in hot summer air. If you look down them, you'll notice they have quite a bit of pitch. Because of the elliptical tips, they'll probably have a relatively low engine load. 11.3, I suspect, will be more like a tune pipe prop, although I don't know what the real pitch is here. From looking at this, I'm guessing this looks like a lot more than 3. But maybe it is, maybe it isn't. Again, we'll know more about these. John Brodak sells these props, so maybe he'll be a real good guy and send me a whole selection of everything with 11 inches. 11. What I'd really like to have, John, hey, and I know you're watching, is 11.5 and 11.6. Then I'd like to have a 12.5 and a 12.6 and a 12.4 so I can cut them down to 11. But again, basically I'll get started with these today. This will give me a little start on getting these put together. No matter what wood props you're working with. A couple of tips. People take a prop and they just go put it on a prop balancer, sand the finisher off so that the oil gets in right away, and get it roughly and crudely balanced and then leave it. Well, my feeling is if you're going to use wood props, and I think there's a lot of advantages to using wood props. Number one, they're lighter, needless to say. But one of the things you want to always do is get off the finish that comes from the factory. That factory finish is just really on there so they can sell you the prop, I think. And while you're at it, you can clean up all the blades, true everything up real nice, and put a nice coat. In this case, what I like to use on the props is black diamond acrylic lacquer. This is the material I always like to paint props with. Put a little bit of Flexor, a little bit of fisheye in here, and about 60% 3608 thinner. A couple of coats right over the raw wood. You don't need any sanding sealer, any clear, anything. 3 coats if you want a show prop, and you got yourself a really nice, really doable finish. 1 can will paint 1,000 props too. By the way, this is acrylic lacquer, so if you don't add the Flexor, for sure it'll crack. Now, just looking at these 2 props, it looks like And I kind of sight, what I do is I sight down here to get a flat, the back, let's do one at a time. Sight down here to get a flat surface so both parts disappear at the same time. And walk your eye up, you can see this one really is, they really are low on pitch. But again, we don't know for sure. You can also go by the thickness of the hub. You can see the 4 is just a little bit thicker than the 3. Also another thing, take the price tags off. It's not even funny. I've seen people flying with the price tags on. And the price tag then flies off and the prop's out of balance. Anyway, what I eventually want to have is one zinger. I'm guessing we're going to wind up with 11.5s. 11.5s or 11.6s. 4s are really underpitched. 6s are probably a little bit overpitched, but basically you always want to start with a selection. And if you start with, now this prop here just looks like it has some really funky wood grain in it, but you can start with a nice selection in any brand, a 3, a 4, a 5, and a 6. That'll get you really in a ballpark, and we're looking to just try this for a first flight. And I don't have an 11. I would like to have the 11.5s and 6s though. Ultimately, what I'd like to do is get some of the 3-blade, those Zingale 3 blades. But the object is to check as many as you possibly can, as many as time permits. And the idea is that I can do a lot of this testing. I can pass it on to John Brodak, and when somebody comes up with a problem, or they need this or they need that, or some suggestions, we can even put them right in the kit. What prop would be a good one to start with? Now you have a couple of choices. One is you can get some paper towels, some acetone, lacquer thinner. The dope retarder works well. And just wipe off the finish, or you can make up a little turkey pan, pour the acetone in, let them soak 5 minutes. And some of the finishes come right off, some don't. This looks like we're lucky, one of the ones that doesn't come right off. But these are old top flight props. What a price on here, 45 cents. What does that tell you? I have a gut feeling we're going to wind up with a little bit bigger than a 10-inch prop, but again, when you're doing prop testing, you got to be willing to pay the price and just do a lot of it. And you'll eventually, even if you do it randomly, you'll figure out.
A lot of times after you soften up the finish with some acetone, let it dry a little bit, it just powders right off, in which case that's what seems to be happening. These guys, the acetone wasn't so good about taking it off, so I'm just going to sand it off. Some of the finishes, like the rev-ups, right off. It depends, I guess, what kind of varnish they use. This is old, too. These props are really old. But I want to start with the wood part of the prop. I want to start by balancing the wood part of the prop. Always want to start by balancing the wood part of the prop. Also, at this point in time, I want to take and just dress off all the edges so I don't have a razor sharp edge where the paint will just start peeling from. Just slightly radius each one of the edges. Now, because this finish was not really softened up enough by the acetone, in fact, you see I can take my fingernail and scratch it off. I'll use the power sander. I know this will work. Sort of something, when you come to think of it, that's what these sanders are made for, is to sand varnish. So it is working decently though. Certainly worth a try. I found you can get a little better action if you press down rather than hold it up in midair. It really takes it right off. that sander, as we use it more and more, we're finding more and more little things. This certainly is one of them. I want to finish this off with some 320, and then get these all balanced, and maybe even get the paint on here before it's time to go.
Now, if you have one of these little floor sanders, you may want to try it. I found it to be somewhat helpful, but it's really, really, it's under 20 degrees out there. It's too cold to paint today, so I'm just going to wait here until Kenny comes over. This is definitely the coldest day of the year out there. Well, and the reality is there's just no substitute for having a lot of props. And with wood props, it's even economical to test them. And one of the things we'll try to get some APCs. I hope sooner or later I'll have some zingers, some APCs, whatever. Anything in the 11, maybe to 10.5 range, I think will be worth trying. Another thing, if anybody out there has some 12-inch 3-blade carbons and they've nicked the tip up to the point where they're about, maybe 10 1/4 or so, I'd be interested in trying them also. I'd definitely be interested in trying some 3-blades, but this for sure is going to be too big. I know there's no point even trying that, but I just want to have a prop on there when we go to the stunt forum. Testing props is always one of the things I personally enjoy. And this is a new opportunity for me to enlarge my knowledge of things, because I'm not really familiar with a lot of 40-size engines. So this will give me some time to familiarize myself with the K and B 40. And if there becomes some other engines available, anybody would like to mail me some free engines, I guess. Just kidding. Anyway, this is always an adventure. It's always something that's time-consuming, but the bottom line is when you're all done with it and you're finished, you know something that in the beginning you didn't know, and if your heart is in the right place, you'll probably pass it right on so that everybody can enjoy this stuff. In particular, one of the things I really do enjoy experimenting with as well as motors is props. Props is just like a black science, and you try and all of a sudden you find something out you didn't know before, and makes it all worthwhile, makes it all very rewarding, in fact. Yeah, it's always fun when you think you're going to learn something and it doesn't cost you a lot of money, but you can do a little experiment on your own, a little test on your own, then you really do know. Then you're not taking somebody's word for it, or something you saw in a magazine or watched on a video or something. You really know for your own personal knowledge. It's always very rewarding to me to really know, not to have to take somebody's word for it. And I always like to do this at the end of the day too, is kind of get down and dirty and look at the profile view and dream of those warm summer days to come. Down in Middlesex with all the guys, Circle Burn Field, Muncie, hey, Hampton Beach, Scott's House. I hope we're looking at the best year of all time. And thanks to video, you'll be there, even if you miss the contest. Now, I worked, believe me, a lot of hours to get this plane to the point where it is now so that we could demonstrate it over at what's going to be the stunt forum. There's only one problem with the whole thing. There's so many more things that I really would like to do. I would like to get a test flight. It's way too cold. I would like to have all the props made. We're getting hopeless weather here lately. But anyway, every year, people that have been following us along for 6-8 years or whatever we've been doing it, they know that I always try to have a new plane each year, and my apologies for not having two this year, because the other one obviously will not be ready for the Nats.
But it also opens up the door to a real opportunity for me. Basically, in my lifetime, since 66, I've made my commitment in life to be the Tiger 60, and all of the propellers and Venturis and work that I did with Big Jim's help and whatever. I've really tried to make that my calling card. And this is going to give me an opportunity this year, the way the year has evolved, it's going to give me a year to develop this little package in a smaller plane, and all the little hardware and tanks and Venturis and whatever else we're going to do with this. Maybe even make our own molded props, who knows. Now, had I been able to finish the other plane, the I-beamer, and I'm going to constantly work on it, but it's just realistically not going to be done by Nat's time. Had I had the opportunity to finish that, I might have put this kind of on the back burner and just not gone on developing it, but it's given me a real opportunity here, and with the stunt forum coming up, it's going to give me a little chance to show it off, get some feedback from other people, because we really would like this to be, you know, an integral part of the world of stunt, I hope. But again, we'll find out. And when you start off on these kind of things, you never really know where they're going to go. And in this case, this has been a very enjoyable trip. But we're also hoping that it's going to be something that is a major contribution back to the world of stunt. It's not just going to be a one-shot thing, and not many people will share the enjoyment. We've enjoyed building it. It's finished. It's buffed, except for propellers that have to be painted, and maybe some final shine or whatever before we go out to the show. I'm going to pretty much spend the rest of this day getting things ready for this show, because I'd like to try to demonstrate. And if you're a subscriber, you definitely will get the Stunt Forum video automatically, but you might want to share that with all your friends. There's going to be some good demos, I hope, and some people showing off their new stuff. But for the rest of the day, I'm going to spend the rest of the day getting the truck ready, getting everything packed, getting everything cleaned up, and hope that the way it turned out, I was kind of disappointed, to be honest. I was kind of disappointed, and I said, gee, if I rushed that other airplane through, and I know the reality is I've built a plane in 21 days and won the concourse with it. Yeah, I can do that kind of stuff too, but at this point in my life, I just want to enjoy this, and I want to enjoy every step of it. And I think that I-beam plane is going to be so significant for me that what it's going to allow me to do is something even I never thought of. When I start the building season next year, that plane will probably already be tissued in silver or whatever, and it'll allow me to do what I hope will be the ultimate semi-scale plane in my collection anyway. And we don't know about the collection of the world yet, but certainly enough people interested in semi-scale. But this little guy has been the surprise of the century to me. He has really been a lot of fun to build, and I can't picture the plans, from the plans, whether you have a kit or whether you built it from the drawings or the videos or what. I just feel like this is a major contribution, and it is at this point, and excuse me if I take a minute today here before I go out to work, to just think about the journey of life is the same as a plane. You start out, you don't really know where it's going to go, but one of the things that came from this was my friendship with John Brodak, the foam business with Ken, and of course the sad passing of Joe Kay. So life is always changing, and you never really know where you're going, but if you know where you're going, it's not much of an adventure. So having said that, there's only one thing left to do, and I can't wait to get out there. I am really itching to go flying.
Now, in today's mail, and believe me, one of the people I truly, truly enjoy having an interaction with is Noel Drindak. This is Noel's geodetic wing, a Bob Hunt Lost Foam Kit wing. Notice that it's built in a foam cradle. Bob has videos on how to do this for anybody that's really looking for the details. He also makes, I'm sure he makes the kits and whatnot. It certainly looks like, and I know everything Noel does is right on the money. Noel always has his ducks in a row. Now, the nice thing about Noel, I got to say this before I even show the rest of the pictures, the nice thing about having an interaction with Noel has contributed into the hobby, his column, of course. Also, many of the things he's working on now, a straight push rod where the bell crank is mounted off-center in a wing, and if nobody tries these things, we'll never really know. And I give Noel all the credit. I think President Nixon found me. All the credit in the world for trying this stuff. here's another picture of the construction. Again, what Noel is trying to windshift bell crank, windshift horns, and he's trying to create a perfectly straight line between the bell crank and the horns, which has some mechanical advantages. Again, I'm going to give Noel all the credit in the world, because if nobody tries these things, again, I say this over and over, you never really know. And I'm sure Noel is knowledgeable enough as an engineer, professional engineer, that a lot of these things from an engineering point of view, they don't dawn on an average person, but they certainly do work. Now, one of the things worth mentioning, really worth mentioning, let me see if I got a pointer here. Notice how this spark contains the bell crank. The bell crank is much further toward the top of the wing than the bottom. At least that's what he had in the stunt column. And as always, Dan Winship's horns are just beautiful, a work of art. Bell crank, I can't tell from this picture if this is one of his carbon bell cranks, but he did make some carbons, and I know he makes other types. Excellent workmanship from Dan Winship, and of course from Noel. Now this is Noel's fuselage. This, believe me, this is a good idea. This is something that I don't know if Noel is the first one or if other people have done it. What he's done is, I don't know if I can show this in the pictures, I've got captions. Well, I'm trying to read off the captions. One of the things that he's trying to do here is he made the fuselage from the high, I'll show it off of this picture. From the high point of the wing forward, he made it with 1/8 inch balsa. From the high point of the wing to the back with 16th balsa. Then he's going to join the fuselage halves. Instead of cutting out the wing and the bottom, join them this way. And I think by far, that's an excellent idea. I have one other thought. If you didn't want to do that, and it's something that I've done on the Seafires and Spitfires and whatever, is I've taken 1/8 inch balsa sides and then, say from where the flap horn is back, sanded the pieces till it was maybe 3/32 here and then 16th in the back, so it had a constant taper. Another thought, but the most important thing, and Noel I'm sure would be the first one to agree, the most important thing of all is to maintain the rigidity. Now notice how many formers are in here, how closely they're spaced. That's what gives you the rigidity. Okay, I'm reading, this is a nice letter that Noel wrote, and I skipped over this before. It says, the control system uses a Delrin bell crank with double ball bearings. I make them myself. I'm using carbon fiber push rods with Rocket City's extra heavy-duty ball links. I think I sent you a few. You sure did, Noel, and I think they definitely will work fine. I don't think there'll be a problem with those heavy-duty guys. One of the things, keep in mind with anything that you're experimenting with, if it's something totally new, and we're going to be trying something radically new, the thing we're going to be trying in the real near future is making aluminum horns. I don't know how that's going to work. But for sure, you would always do it on your own plane first and on a test plane, a plane that if it failed in service, you wouldn't lose your winter building season. Fuse is built in 2 halves, split at the high point of the ring. The front half is fairly conventional, 1/8 inch balsa, 1/32 doublers. Well, the only thing different there is I use 16th plywood, but it's personal choice. An unusual feature is the tank compartment, which is a rigid box with no open bay. The tank floor is removable and provides a base for the cowl. The rear half of the fuse is definitely not conventional. The sides, the top, and the bottom are 16th balsa with carbon fiber mat laminated to the inside. Formers are also laminated with carbon fiber. A conventional top and bottom block will be used. No, you go through all this trouble, make a mold. Just kidding, Noel. The objective is a fuse which is both rigid, very light, and very stiff. By the way, Noel, if you'd like, and I know Noel watches all these videos, hey, I'd be glad to spot you a molded top block for this if you're interested, and I'll see you at the stunt forum. But only under one condition that you help Mr. Hummel up there build that Valkyrie. I just want to add one paragraph from Noel, and I'm going to put this in the crash repair column. Big letters. Add my name to your list of people who have had traumatic experiences with nitrate dope. And boy, the list is getting longer by the day. I used nitrate for a base on last year's Kestrel with disastrous results. I had bubbles and dry spots I thought would never go away. Some didn't. I've learned my lesson. I'll never use nitrate again. Now, see, this is what I like to do. Noel, we're going to get this on video. See this? And when Bill, you got to hold him to this. Never again will I use nitrate. Just kidding, Noel. Don't get mad at me. Hey, And by the way, those ball links that Noel did send me, they're in the Rocket City catalog. Anybody wants to try them, I would certainly think they'd be a good way to go if you like this kind of a control system. Hey, and we'll see you at the forum. Okay, it finally warmed up enough to get some paint on these guys. We're going through some cold weather here. Now, of course, the next thing you want to do, once the paint is dried up, and we'll do it right now, is check the balance. You've got the wood balanced, and now you want to balance the paint. Obviously the heavy side here, I'll take some Gorhams. Okay, make sure it's the heavy side. A little bit of Gorhams will balance that right up. That is black diamond really buffs up really quickly. A little bit of Gorhams on that. Now I like to store the props after they're buffed a little bit. Store them in a little sandwich bag just so they don't get scratched up. See what that sandwich bag does, it just protects it a little bit from when this is floating around the toolbox. In fact, these even fit the wrong way. Should be even better. Anyway, when I put this in the toolbox, I don't wind up getting them all chipped up and beaten up. Hey, speaking of things, nice profile view inverted. Oh, beautiful. The moment of truth at the end of every plane, and of course there's plenty of ways to jury rig this if you want. I got it on a scale. It's 43 ounces with a carbon prop, which means it'll be 42 with a wood prop. And that includes the tip weight. I mean, everybody plays these games where you take the wheel pants off, take the tubing off or whatever. The only thing that still has to get added onto here is a fuel filter. I don't have a new fuel filter. 42 ounces, I think we can live with that. I think that's a real nice weight for, well, a plane this size. But most of all, playing with that thick wing. Speaking of weight, Bob Gieske used to tell me he'd paint his Nobles. If they came out a little light, he'd paint them till they were 42 ounces. That was the magic. So Bob Gieske ever gets to see this video, well, hey, we're going to be following in your footsteps. I think Nobler's a little bit smaller airplane now. Well, most of all, I'm thinking of 43 ounces, 42 ounces might be just about right for a K&B 40. Guess we're going to find out. Now, every once in a while, I get a letter from somebody in the mail that just makes my heart thump and bump and crump and everything. This is from Uwe. Uwe, of course, has built a Spitfire, built a Cardinal, and I have to read this. I really have to let my ego take the best of me. I'll read this. It seems that the Cardinal is conquering Europe. After my Cardinal was shown around, a lot of people got interested. Just your three of them were in the air and I know that there are a lot more under construction. Everybody who flew it was hooked up to the Cardinal Field. Many have asked for plans. Anyway, I have to tell you, Uwe, you are a top builder, man. I hope we're going to get some pictures soon. A lot of cool stuff in the mail today. Now, I know you can't see this. You can't hear it real well. I'm going to pass a copy of this on to Banjock. This is the video that Brian McCarthy sent me of, they were using Allison's, I can't even think, I'm so upset. These engines, they were turning them Spitfire engines into boat engines. They unsupercharged. I can't believe they painted them yellow. It's disgusting. But some of the background noise on this, I'm going to tape some of this just so that I have the background noise next time I want to do some Spitfire inspirational stuff. This is unbelievable. They're dyno testing. They're making marine engines out of them is what they're doing, but boy, you listen to it. The exhaust, the flames are coming right out. I got this from Brian McCarthy. Again, just one of the cool things. Once you get an exchange going with your friends and you're sharing, everybody's in a great mood, everybody's having fun. A lot of things take place other than just the normal, I can fly better than you. You get all these kind of little things going. I never would have seen this. Now, it turns out Brian, I had a boat on Greenwood Lake in 73, 74, 75, and it turns out that Brian, at the same time, had a boat on Greenwood Lake, and we probably went right past each other, and now he's got all kind of, this is all of these are the engines. They're not supercharged, but they're the same engines that are in Spitfires, and they turned them into boat engines. I don't know, I have to watch the whole thing with the sound on again, because all I really like listening to is the sound of these motors. Unbelievable. Banjock, if you don't have some of this music playing when you're putting that Mustang together, except I don't know the bridge. Why did they paint these things yellow? Can you imagine? I gotta watch this. This is great. Now also check the size of this template in today's mail. By the way, this is nice templating material, Ed. This is from Ed Gallagher, of course. Nice polished templates. He sent this up for Kenny to look at. These wings are cut with, I guess you can see, with one template. There's only one template. Look at these exhausts. I can't work without the sound on here. You're gonna be listening to this over and over. You basically can get the idea of what's going on here. But anyway, we're over at Kenny's shop today. We finished up that sweeper wing. He cut a whole bunch of other wings. Just can get some idea. This is the tube spar. And if you think, it may sound like, well, what do you need to know about these kind of wings for? Well, being Ken is in the foam business, he wants to know everything. It may be that, and it's so nice. My friend Ed has been I can't thank him enough, more than great. I'll send him a copy of this video, in fact. Listen to this. You can't believe this. Tell me Banjock isn't excited about this. Anyway, I can sit here and listen to this all day long. Anyway, I'm going to go. When we're over at Kenny's shop the next time, I'll try to get some of this on. Been listening to that for the last hour. Anyway, he cuts this with one wire, basically. One template, one wire, no bow. Okay, I'm going to have to go through this. He vacuum bags the wings, and of course sent us a copy of the aerospace video. He's got the servo lead holes in here. I'll have to show this to Kenny. This is really something cool. Now, but it isn't really this. That's the part of it. Look at it. It's President Nixon wanting to buy a jet wing. I don't believe this. Ed says as he cuts the trailing edge to 0 here, I want to explain what that is. When you're doing a vacuum bag, it's not a big deal. This would really not work on a stunt ship where you needed to have a flap or a trailing edge. But just to show you, look at the size of this thing. You can make a nice pizza pie out of this. I think the significant thing is, and maybe I've overstated this a million times, I'll pass this on to Ken, of course, but I have to tell you, Ed is a perfect example, but there are many others, people that have shared their life with us, and through the magic of this video, or whatever you want to call it, we get to see Merlin engines, Griffin engines, boat racing, P-51s, Banjocks, I don't know,
To me, that's the significant part of the video. The rest, if you live out in the boondocks and nobody shares the hobby with you, I don't know how much fun you could have. You probably do have fun, but we've set up what I hope is a network from Uwe to Ed Gallagher to Kennedy's shop to John Brodak, that the sharing of the hobby itself is the whole reason for going. And I think this is really going in the right direction. With so many people sending me there, I mean, in the last week I could open up a store here with the stuff I'm getting. And maybe the reason is because I give a lot of stuff away. I mean, maybe some people look at that and they're offended by that, or they're somehow thinking, oh, he's playing games or something. But it isn't, believe me. What is nice is having the friends, and we are well on the way to making this the best season of all time in the world of stunt, if we live to tell about it.
Now, for anybody that doesn't know, a friend of mine, Art Thomas, and I refinished would not be the right word. We refinished one of these mahogany boats about, I don't know, maybe in the 70s, in the late 70s. And boy, this brings back some memories. Oh, the finishing on this, the sanding. If you think you're sanding silver, you have no idea when you start doing a Chris Craft. It's endless. It's endless. And the sound of these motors, oh, the open exhaust. It's from a world gone by. And it's a world really in reality. Not many people, the way things are in our society now, are going to go back to any of the hard work. All you have now is really, wow, look at this engine. Oh my God, look at this. Oh God, I don't believe it. This is unbelievable. What an installation. Brian, I got to tell you, I've been watching this thing the whole night as I've been sanding and buffing and cleaning and getting ready for this. Oh man. President Nixon even wants a copy of this.
Another little in the evolutionary process here, boy, I'm breathing this stuff in. Every time I come up with a little trick or a tip or something that can make this a little bit easier, I just always try to put it on a tape. Now, I won't go into this in too much detail other than to say I now have this very comfortable in my mind that this is going to be a replacement part for the Noblers, the turtle decks. And there's been so much interest in it. And what happens is typically one guy, in this case, we've sent out one turtle deck to somebody who apparently showed it to somebody else. They ordered 3 of these. Whew, the smell. They ordered 3 of these. Now, the problem is I can't make 3 at a time. But what I did come up with, I had the mold already marked. And I really don't even need to use a whole piece of wood now to make one. I don't even need to do the little lamination. See, because the last one I did, I was real confident that I was going to get this shape, so I really don't even have to mold the front part anymore. So what I'm going to do is just let this go up maybe a ½ inch longer than it has to be. Start working this with my hands. And by the way, these now, this last batch of wood that I just got from Lone Star, I have about 10 pieces of this 3/32 A grain that are absolutely beautiful. You can see I can almost bend it in a circle. But without this A grain wood, this is not really practical. Almost the biggest part of the job is getting A grain wood that really will take a set like this. But boy, when I think of how many hours, if I had to carve all these turtle decks and hollow them out, that's going to take this set beautiful. And it's just going to make the distance between the wires. I don't even have to laminate those 2 other pieces. So the only thing left to do on this type of a job now is set that distance. Let me see if I can breathe. Is set that distance and then trim this way, because I know I'm going to wind up with extra wood down out here. See, when you start this, you really don't know where this is going to wind up, but after you make a few of them, for instance, now I know I can just get rid of this extra piece of wood. I don't even have to deal with it. I can kind of roll this over, and I know roughly I'm going to be here. Every one of these that I make, it's a little bit quicker and nicer and more reasonable than the one before it. And I guess we're in that learning curve, I hope, real soon. Because I assume if this part ever gets out into the real market, this is going to be a very popular, just like the cowling. I would have never in my wildest dream imagined how many cowlings, these nobler cowlings seem to be, just a standard part. You almost could assume that almost every other person that buys a kit is going to order a cowling. Anyway, having this wood, the whole trick, having real light, punky A-grain is just making this job so nice, so easy. And of course, always pin the piece. I can see it's almost going to the rod, almost it's right on center. The pinning of it makes it a lot easier. See, in the beginning, I didn't have a lot of these tricks, little tips or whatever. And we still got parts, but what happens is every time you make a bunch of these, you find another little shortcut, and eventually we hope we're going to get to the point, remember, we're probably there already and I don't even realize it, get to a point where just about anybody that has the mold, and even if you don't have, if you carved the turtle deck already for a nobler, if you carve that piece, you already have the mold. You don't have to go a whole lot further. Now by starting the wrap, and this is the self-adhering ace bandage, you know pretty much it's going to pop in the back. That has never been a problem yet. In fact, that little piece gets removed on a nobler. Take the pins off as you go. I'm real happy. Maybe I'm overstating it. I'm real happy with the fact that the nobler cowls have added such a nice dimension to John Brodak's kit. And there's so much love and care went into that kit that just to have these accessory items for there, it's just split now, but that'll be easy to fix. Having these accessory items just adds another nice dimension to a kit that's already a world-class kit to begin with. And having these choices and options, as opposed to whatever the choice is that you just would have the block to hollow. Hey, and there's another side thing. You can keep the block for something else. The block that comes in a kit, which is usually a pretty nice piece of wood. You could save that to carve up some other part and save all the cowl blocks. By the time you're done, you'll have quite a bit of wood when you're done finished with that. Now, the other little trick that I've learned, let me finish putting this Band-Aid, just keep wrapping it around. Let me get a pin in here. Because I know a lot of people, even Rich Peabody has done this, so you know. Poor old Rich. Even he made a turtle deck, so. Again, final thing, we know it's going to split back here. It's not a big deal. Don't let that distract you. But just give this a nice squeezing. 5 minutes maybe of squeezing while you watch the latest episode of MASH or something. When you do the sanding, do it all right on the mold. And as if this wasn't enough, we got to get better. We're sold out of nobler cowlings again. So anyway, that's been part of the adventure. Every year it's some new adventure, and you never really know what's going to really work out well and serve the modeling community well, and you never know what's going to be a good, bad, or mediocre. But this certainly has been a winner, and the cowlings are just the killer winner.
And always, if possible, have it up by a heating vent. Especially here in the East Coast where the heat's on all the time. And we've got a bunch more cowlings up there on top of the television. By the way, that's another little tip when you're putting little composite parts aside to dry. If you have them up by a heating vent, they tend to cure out a lot quicker than if you just leave them in the ambient temperature in here is usually about 55 degrees. And just one more thing, with the aid of having the latest of the 3 molds really makes a pretty part. I mean, this part needs almost no hand finishing when it comes out of the mold. Again, this is just one of those things on an ongoing basis. And this is the reason I put all this stuff on the tape. I don't try to edit it down and make it look like I've never had a problem, or like, I'll just give you an example. This is the latest of the Spitfire cow. You can see the mold is starting to deteriorate here. This rubber is, well, probably 2 years old already. And it's really starting to get rough. But probably the next time I hand finish one of these, I'll make up a new mold for that. I don't want to start sending out parts like that, that's for sure. And Midgley's mold, even though we do get some of these once in a while, they have a little imperfection, and it's easy to fix. And they have a real nice finish on them. This is a mold that, thanks to Dave carving that out, it kind of fits an Aries and it kind of fits a Cardinal where you want to make it look like an Aries. It's a real nice accessory thing to have. I'm always glad to see that so many people have just caught on to this and will accept it, that it's a viable way of putting that plane together and enjoying modeling more. I think you enjoy it more when you carve less. Now today I got some pictures of Rudy Ryback's Cardinal. Well, I'll tell you, that looks nice. It almost looks like that's painted on, that scalloping. Anyway, this is the one Rudy made from the videos. He never even had a set of drawings to work with. And I'll obviously pass these on to Stunt News, but Rudy really has done a nice job on this. Now Rudy, of course, and Dwayne Rothman, they're busy watching all the videos, picking up information, saving time and energy. They both have big Cardinal kits, so we're looking forward to seeing some of that in the future and being of some help. Maybe with those fiberglass and molded parts, you guys could get on a bandwagon here. Anyway, this is really nice. And I hope to have some pictures soon with, hey, this is a real nice one. Looks like the ducks, the Cardinals and the ducks are together. That looks like a real nice picture. Anyway, some pictures of Rudy's building board. And Dwayne was giving away some glass. The last time I saw him, he had a bunch of extra glass. He has access to it. And Rudy wants you to go right home and work on that big Cardinal and get it done for the summer. Now I open up today's mail and there's a package marked for Bert and Ernie Ertnowski. Now look, this is really Tennyson. Exotic imported food from Washington, Safeway in Newport. Anyway, look what it is. Dear Bert and Ernie, I saw you in the movies and you looked hungry, like the kids in Ethiopia. I suspect Wendy has dipped into the fish food fund to purchase some esoteric material and build an I-beam for the new Spit. At any rate, here are some groceries from Washington. That's Washington State. Anyway, Bert and Ernie are hungry, and we're going to go right over and feed them. Add this to the Bert and Ernie collection. Well, I know you guys that don't have Bert and Ernie's, I know you don't understand my attraction to the fish. They really are. Look, there's a Bert and Ernie on the can there. But anyway, just think of what life would be like if you didn't have friends to share these things with, if you lived off in the boondocks and nobody to share your fish food with. I don't know. I just like having it the other way around. Now, one of the nice pieces, I just received this from Tom Lay today. These are made by Brian Ether. And this is what I hope is going to be the prop for the new I-beamer, or one of the props. In the past, I've used Bali props. Bali props need to be hand finished, and there's a tremendous amount of work doing the hand finishing. And I was curious, now that Brian is manufacturing these look like a really well-made product. Well, I did. I measured the tip-to-tip distance, and it's off maybe a 1/16 of an inch, which leads me to believe the blades are out of kilter by about a 1/16 at each blade. But I'm sure, knowing Brian, that he's tested these and that they're fine. And by the way, just for anybody that might not know, when they ran the Spruce Goose with all 8 of the engines, they always ran one engine totally out of sync to kill vibration, and maybe Brian's ahead of me by making them offset just a little bit like that. I don't know for sure. I know on my 5 blade I've got one blade just a little bit off, and it doesn't seem to vibrate at all. So, and it really is a good stump pulling prop. But one of the things about these, now this is an all brand new prop. It's pitched at about 4 inches. I'm going to have to obviously check this with my pitch gauge and get an idea where this sits relative to the Bali props. Now what's nice is when I was using the Bali props, the 4 blades, and these are about 12 inches, I've got 2 of them that really have been dialed into these individual engines, the compression and the Venturi sizes of these engines. One of the things that's real nice, these really work really well under circle burner conditions. Joe Adamusco really likes these props too. Now I kind of favor the one with a little more pitch, and that's the one I used on the Spitfire. Last year I tried using the Rev Up 14.5s at the Nats and at the team trails, but I think this year we're going to go back to the 4-blade. I just like the way it looks. And the performance is either equal to or maybe even a little better under some conditions like the circle burner field where we do almost all offline.
And in the upcoming year, please look for some real prop testing on that K&B 40. That's one I really look forward to because I don't even have a baseline yet for that, and I'm really looking forward to even to get the engine run in and get it broken in and get a feeling for just how that's going to run on various props.
Another thing too, just to mention maybe to some of the new people that haven't been on board for a long time, there's 2 prop videos, one that goes into all the different engines, 35s, 40s, and one basically that's a 60 prop video, the latest one. You might want to check both of those out. In fact, there's a guy calling right now to order some prop tapes. Hey, President Nixon. Now, I want to mention this on the video, now that we've just sold President Nixon a nice prop tuning video. One of the things I want to mention is John Brodak had, at least at the Ram show, he had Prather pitch gauges in stock. But in case you can't get one or you decide you don't want them, there's alternative ways to check prop pitch. Now I have one for every prop. This is for the 4 blades, Seafire and Spitfire. They cost nothing to make, very quick to make. I also list in the days of doing tuned pipes, you can see we would be changing the prop pitch almost on an hourly basis, and this got a little complicated. With a Tiger 60, it's relatively easy. We have some of the 5-blade gauges, some of the ones I used for the 5 blades. But to do a pitch gauge deal, a couple of things that are really important to me. I only consider the last maybe this much of the prop, inch and a half, as being really significant. The rest of it, yeah, you can fool with this until the cows come home, but it's this last inch that really does all the work. Now, step 1 is I like to have a diameter gauge. All a diameter gauge is a pin through a piece of motor mount, a pin that's a relatively tight fit on the prop hub. Now, again, when you buy a Bali prop, you need to do an exact trimming. The blades aren't all exactly the same. It's not a big deal, but it's something you have to be aware of. They give you instructions with it on how to do that. Brian's prop, you can see, is really accurate. I don't know if you can see this up close. I'm within a pencil line on the diameter, so that tells me that part of it is not even worth pursuing. We're real close on that. That's the first thing, is that's relatively accurate now. Now I want to get an idea as to the balance. Again, I'm balancing these 2 blades. This looks like the heavy one. I always double check. Fell out of the gauge. Now Brian usually balances these pretty well, even if you were to avoid balancing this. I'm just going to do a fine tuning. This looks like a little bit of a heavy blade. Just going to take the slightest bit of material off the back of the blade and try to do it evenly. Again, wood props and Bali props, you better really balance. That's real close, but this is the heavy blade. This prop was so close, it was 3 swipes of sandpaper. If you can see the dust on my finger, that's how much out of balance it was. So I would rate, even though these props are very expensive, I would rate these as excellent values in terms of quality. Now when I put this on my gauge, all this gauge is really going to tell me, you can see I'm only concerned with that last little bit. I get 2 stations here. In fact, I'll go into the inner station because I am going to change the pitch. It'll save me the first day. Now, I know I want to run my motor at about 9,500 RPM, which, by the way, is not that different than the way they run the tuned pipe motors. It's a little on the high RPM side. But I can see I need, I don't know if I can show this real close, I need just a shade more pitch. We'll check a couple of, oh, this is off by so little. And the other blades are dead equal. So that's real nice. Very nice. That is really close. In fact, before I even change it, I'll probably run it the way it is just to see if it's... See, normally, let me just do an exaggerated thing here so you can see. If I was... See, I don't have the bolt in it. If I was running this blade, now look down here, and the blade is like this, I know it has less than the right amount of pitch. And this is too much pitch. Then I would heat it and bring it back down. Again, I think it's so close, I'm going to leave it the way Brian said it and just give it one shot at the field if we get a day that I can get out there and fly. Especially, now when there's a little less pitch like this, what it really means is you're going to have to fly the engine RPM a little higher, Venturi bigger, compression higher, or more nitro. But I think it's going to be worth trying it just the way it is. In fact, I would suggest anybody that likes to play with props get familiar with how to change the pitch. There's advantages and disadvantages of carbon props. They're heavier, they're more expensive, but there's certainly times and places where they can work to your advantage. And of course, you want to try them all. Wish they made a nice little 4-blade for the K&B 40. Anyway, we'll put this in the body. The only thing left to do, I have to serrate the hub. What happens is this has to get bored out to fit a Tiger 60. This is quarter 28, and then I serrate the hub, so it's rough, and the washer gets a good bite on that. That's an important step of carbon prop technology. Now, one of the little $10 or $15 tools that I have in the shop is a little engraving tool, and what this is excellent for, and it's just a small jeweller's engraving. Of course, you can mark your name on things, on motors, props, whatever, but it's real good for doing a serration. Now, the back of this prop, if you put this up on a spinner backplate, no matter how, especially when it gets a little oil on it, it's going to slip. So I like to take, especially carbon props. Only takes a minute. And if you've ever seen people that go to start at a contest, flip the prop, bump, bing, the prop flies off, that's probably one of the reasons is you need some serration, and I like to do it in a sunburst so that this is in a twisting motion. I'm catching all these little rough edges as I go around. Obviously, I'll do the other side also. And then I also like to engrave a prop with what number it is. This of course, will be number 4. I have 3 other ones of the Bali set, and this will be number 4. And see, this is just from my own coating, so these things all start to look alike. And ultimately, when I get the pitch exactly the way I want it, and we don't know yet, of course, we absolutely have no flying with it yet, then what I'll do is I'll give this the Rotoll paint job, get it all sanded down and everything, paint it, and that'll probably be in the bank. Nice prop, though, something you should consider if you're making a Spitfire. Well, a Banjock if you're making a Mustang. Hey, good on a Mustang. I said before, this hole really doesn't fit a Tiger 60. You need to take a hand taper reamer and gently bring this up to 7 millimeters. You don't want to get this hole offset at any price. Take a little slice so you can see the stuff, and then give it a test fit until it's a really nice tight fit on the crankshaft. It'll fit on the threads, but it just doesn't ride up there, so I'm going to take one little bit off at a time. Again, this is kind of a precision thing. You don't want to go crazy with it. Take a few swipes with a taper reamer. Don't use a step reamer. Yeah, it's just starting to slide on now, so I'm probably 1 or 2 swipes away from having it. Patience is the key here, though. You do not want to have a sloppy fit. It throws, especially on a 4-bladed prop, it throws it completely out of balance. And now it's halfway on. Now I know I'm just very little. In fact, I'll take a swipe from this side, so. So a lot of times you get impatient, you just run out and take too much at one time, and then it just slides around and they're sloppy as can be. I'm just going to fit this up. getting there. We're halfway there. Actually, working with props, I think, to me, is one of the biggest gains in performance of anything you do. There's more gain in performance in the prop than there is in the motor. A good prop on a bad motor is better than a bad prop on a good motor any day of the week. There you go. Now that's a tight, absolutely tight. There's no slop at all in there. The prop in our inventory. And Banjack, by the way, we'll be glad to loan you these props at the, when you get that Mustang going. We can actually, Spits and Mustangs can share props. It's great. Now, I think this is one of the slickest ideas that I've seen in a long time. This is from Walt Brownell. Walt is, I don't know how to describe his finishes. They're front row, for sure. His Planey Outlaw was exactly these colors, the green. If he even has stationary to match, even I don't have stationary to match. But he had a great idea, and I think this is something we could all share. He's coming up with his new paint scheme, and what he did, he documented out how he's going to do this day by day. Day one, do this. Day two, spray one coat, spray to trim back. He documented this all out, and he asked for my feedback. And what I did, I put on a couple little, he's real close, but just a couple little notations. And believe me, what I think, Walt, I know you're going to watch this video, but believe me, one of the things I think you really should do, and this is a great opportunity for you to share this with the world of stunt. You are a top-level finisher. Don't let anybody give you any riff-raff about that. But what I think you could do, and we could put it in a crash repair column, is, I've never seen it done, is document day one. You don't have to keep track of Monday and Tuesday, but day one, day two, day three, we let it dry, day four. This is an excellent thing. I'd like to even use this and copy it, but I think you could fine-tune it after the plane is done. And I think this would be a major contribution to the world of stunt. This is the kind of thing that most people don't want to take the time and document. But the new people in the hobby, they look at this and they really don't know. See, example here. Spraying the final coat of primer, let it dry 2 days. Those are the kind of little things. A lot of people spray the primer in the morning, sand it in the afternoon, make a mess. Having this in a sequential thing with days that you skip a day, days off, and of course right down to the final area. You can see the little note I sent to Will. Believe me, when you get to this, start the sand buffing, it's worth it. Believe me, it is worth it. And you know, no matter what, a quality finish, there aren't many other things in the world that get me excited than seeing that nice buffed out, shining like a diamond in the sun finish. And Will, I hope you'll do that for us. So either way, thanks for the idea, and I'll definitely work with you if you want to write this up, document it up for Stunt News. Either way, thanks. Now today, I wanted to set up what I really was intending to do. We had trued this table up a while back. I wanted to check it. And it's a good idea, even in the course of building a model, to check it. And it seems pretty good. Having that machinist ruler is a big help. I want to particularly check across where the wing will actually be built. It's not even close to being out the amount of an IBM card, which is about 4 thousandths. Okay. So what I want to do now, I've had to make a determination. One of the things I wanted to determine is exactly how I wanted to build a wing, and I wanted to give myself a couple extra days to think about this, that, and the other thing. But what I want to do today is I want to try to do what I call a dry fit. Lay out all the parts, make all the shims, the blocks, the pin blocks, and all the parts that I'll need to physically actually put the wing out on the jig. And I have a couple of ideas that, well, when you lay them out, sometimes they work better than you originally thought, and sometimes they don't work at all. So a little dry fit right now, and to see what kind of problems I'm going to run into. Again, problem with building this type of a wing is nobody's ever done this before. There isn't even a magazine you can go to where Charlie Chebunkin, made the elliptical I-beam. Well, maybe there isn't, I just don't know it. Irrelevant anyway. What I really want to do is try to come up with the best method, a method that'll work for me, and obviously people in the future that will be building will want to build this wing. And I know people like Uwe Degner are going to jump on this in a minute, and all of a sudden there'll be a cardinal body here. Yes, I know it's coming. The thing I want to do, because my eyes are bad, even with glasses, I just roughed out where the center line on this fuselage is. And the purpose of this, I'm just going to put a piece of tape on this. Again, this is just a rough fit. This is not the actual fit. We use the actual fit. We'll do this a lot more accurately. Just to get a rough fit that I'm at 140. I'm at 140. I'm at 140 on the entire center line of that. 140 on a machinist gauge. Okay, so what I do, I mark where this mark actually will be for right now. And then the only thing, if you get carried away right now and you start doing it in thousandths, it really isn't appropriate, because we're going to go back when we do the actual construction and do this whole thing over again. But having a little like more or less a go-no-go gauge, I want to make sure that all the center lines for the fuselage are at 140. I want to get a nice snug fit in here. Moment of truth, it lines up. Now I can reference off the plan, zero this all in. Now just some of the things we're trying to accomplish is an absolute bulletproof center. When I-beam wings break, we've seen a couple last year, we know they break because this area here gets too weak. And I tried to transition out the strength. This molded carbon just seems to be incredibly strong, but again, we don't want to make it any heavier than it has to be. And this is the first time I've had this laid out in full scale. And of course I have the carved, these are carved leading edges and the trailing edges. And what I'm going to do is piece by piece by piece, try to get this guy all dry fit up, look at where it needs to be shimmed, where I'm going to have to make angles on it. If anything doesn't fit quite tight, now I've got just enough clearance around that spot that I can shim it up or down if I have to, or if I need to shim the body up and down with IBM cards, either way. But here's the first day. This is the first time I've really had this assembled all in one piece like this. Trying to look at it from a lot of different angles just to see if there's anything I want to change before I go on to the next step, catch it from behind. Trying to think about the engineering at Bob Martens, Joe Adamusco, everybody has contributed something to this project, and I don't want to skip over a step here in my haste. See, one of the advantages of doing this type of construction is you really get a lot of chances to get the alignment right. Every step of the way you can constantly be fudging and adjusting things if they need to be adjusted. Even though this looks pretty straight, but there's definitely an advantage. The other advantage is the fuselage actually goes right through the ring rather than just being a big clamshell on top of it. So there's a lot of structural advantages to doing this. And of course, it's been very successful for other people. We're hoping we're going to be able to add our name to that list. I'm trying to think of a way, if possible, that I'm going to be able to figure this out real quickly. I originally was going to build this just up off the table, maybe a 1/16 of an inch, but what I want to be able to do is turn the plane over, obviously, after one side is done, and use that same center line, use my same block. So what I'm going to do, being I have a lot of these top blocks, I'm going to take a top block and rip it up on a rip fence so I'm real accurate to make sure I have exactly and it'll probably be just a little bit under 3 inches. But then I can slice this up, and I'm just trying to think of a way of doing this. I can slice this up into a bunch of little blocks that'll all be probably 2 7/8 or so off the table. And everybody I know has a piece of this wood already cut to this size, so it's one, you have plenty of these, everybody's got some. So it's kind of it makes it a little bit easier than if you had to make them all up on a special dimension.
Even though I thought of the possibility of making it lower, there's no advantage to making it lower. This way I can actually get my hands in there and work around the bottom if I have to. So let me set up a rip fence. I just saw somebody, I can't remember who, at the stunt farm had put a really nasty cut in their thumb. In fact, almost cut it off. So, obviously, safety is number one consideration here. Okay, we're through the block. We don't want to even go a lot higher than the block. But I want to take just enough off of this, and I'll cut 2 or 3 of these up so I have extras. And this will ensure that when I take both cuts, I'll have a relatively flat area. So what I want to do is, let's move this out another 1/16.
Once you do the first cut, running the second cut through just ensures that you have it straight. You should be able to sight down that block right now. Should be real straight. Now once I know that the blocks, the length is true, this is not a critical cut. I just want to make them all roughly the same size. This is not really a great little tool. It's not the one that belongs on a saw, so I'm being real slow and careful. What I want to wind up with is a bunch of blocks that the height is all identical. Obviously, one of the things you should always do, use up your old heaviest balsa wood for making blocks like this.
Now the trick is, similar to the way we did the Brodak Nobler, get a pin, a nice big T-pin, leave enough sticking out, of course, and I had this little Bob Martens gauge, which was kind of a copy of the Walt Russell gauge, and it just used to check heights. It's adjustable, of course. And I want to check that each one of those pins. Now, it isn't really super critical if the pin is exactly where you want it, because we're going to use the height gauge anyway as a double check. But it's a good idea to check each one as you go along, make sure you don't have them up here or down there or whatever. As long as you're real close to begin with, they'll be fine. Now this morning I made up all these pillow blocks, and it's time. I was hoping tonight I'd have enough time to do a little bit of a dry fit here. Now if you haven't checked out this little Brodak Nobler construction video, we're basically using the same technology. It's a little improvisation of that. I wanted to kind of get an idea. Again, this is just a dry fit. I won't use any glue. Just about how this would lay out. Maybe I need to make more blocks, I don't know, but to get a rough idea of how this whole thing is going to lay out for me. In fact, I want to slide some of the ribs on. Again, I'm kind of improvising as I go, and I guess that's the biggest fun part of, well, one of the biggest fun parts of modeling, is when you start to take the pieces and lay them into position. and you start to make up what wasn't an aeroplane long ago, and it is an aeroplane now. And this is, I hope, going to go together relatively, that word relative is a big word in modeling, relatively painlessly. But I can start to lay these parts out and get an idea if I need more of these blocks or how they're going to work out. Again, if you were doing this for the second or third time, it would be no problem at all. But doing it the first time, you always want to have, think before you glue anything down. For instance, I can envision that you could put this whole wing together and then have a lot of trouble snaking a belt crank in there. I want to make sure before I glue anything up that I can snake the belt crank in, snake the horn in. Those type of things, because this is the first time I've built an I-beam, a plane like this, since 1968, when the sweeper was published. Anyway, speaking of the sweeper, oh man, I hope Brent Jordan gets that thing finished. Okay, time to go to work. Now I had carefully cut out these ribs, radiused all the edges. You can see I even had weighed both sides, took the lighter side, of course, for the inside. None of these things are critical, but having a nice set of ribs to start with, Joe Adamusco and Bob Martens, they really did their homework on this. This set of ribs, when I got done with this and I lined them all up, it was about as perfect as I've ever seen a set of ribs that wasn't laser cut. And we always have the choice right now. One of the choices we have is to make another set of these and program them into the laser so this can be laser cut in the future. And because we've done all good quality fits, you can get a really close idea of just how nice that lines up. It really is nice. Boy, I just can't say, I say it over and over again, how nice it is to work off stuff. Joe Adamusco and Bob Martens, the accuracy of this stuff is unbelievable. It just snaps together like a plastic model. Now I'm going to try to make up a little tool for getting the alignment of the ribs so they're exactly spaced on an I-beam plane. If one rib is off a little bit this way or this way, canted, for an I-beam plane to really look first class, those ribs have to be in perfectly straight in every dimension. I'm going to have to make up a little jig, a little tool to do that. Again, I'm just laying these out, just a dry fit to see what kind of accuracy I have on the parts. Now, before I go any further, I can see one of the problems I'm going to run into is this is free floating on the table. So I want to make up a bunch of little balsa triangles just to kind of confine this in position. However I want to do this, I want to just have them tack glued to the table for alignment fixtures. I'm just using up some what amounts to be scrap balsa. And these are not critical things, just little triangles for alignment. Make up a couple, maybe 2 dozen of them. You like them to be, these labels, or whoever had these labels, they ought to be shot. Anyway, once you have one, you can trace it back to back. You want to make up enough that when I'm doing my alignment, I can just keep tack gluing these all over the place without a problem. Got a little jigging stuff on one table. I'm ready to start just tacking these in. Now, needless to say, there's a lot of good fuselage jigs on the market. I think one of the best ones is the one that Bob Hunt's dad makes. But if you're not in the market for a fuse jig and you want to do this with scrap wood, it's probably going to work out well for you. And I just tack glue these down. Again, there's more than one way to build a wing, more than one way to build a body, more than one way to do anything. And this is a real low-cost way, and it'll work well for you. Again, these are free-floating. You can slide the fuselage up and down. You use as many as you need to kind of lock it into position. Oh, it's starting to settle in there. Now I can line it up with the drawing, line up the spar,
At least I have something solid to work with. We can even use one at the end to keep a support back there. The next thing I want to do, I just want to slide the ribs on one by one and get a dry fit on that part of the construction.
Nothing obviously is glued. In fact, to show you, so far ahead of the game, I put the ribs in all backwards. I want the taper facing out. The little taper that I have, well, it's all facing the wrong way, but it's just a dry fit anyway. And I wanted to see just roughly how this is going to frame up. I put a lot of time into thinking this out and thinking it through to take advantage of all the advantages of an I-beam wing, all the integrity and the adaptability that you can have, and everything is just free floating there, and that's why I need all the blocks with the pins. Now, I want to, having put one wing together, I can see this is going to go together relatively easy once it's actually commitment to build time. But it's always nice to do a dry fit. I made that little triangle just to hold the spar in place while I was laying out the ribs. That worked well, but really I don't need it now. Now just to do my dry fitting, I laid out a can of acetone so that the spar wouldn't tend to slide this way when I lay out the ribs on this side. Again, this is just a dry fit. I want to see if everything's going to kind of lay out and tack out the way I want it to before I jack everything up with the pin blocks. And obviously I'm not going to get a chance to do that tonight. I got 2 sessions of work in today, but all of it was with the hope of getting these dry fit joints just the way I wanted them. And this is time, to me it's time well spent. When this starts to all frame up, it'll really probably only take 1 day to frame the whole thing out, or 2 days. And knowing that all of these parts fit and everything lays out is so important before you even start that. Again, it's that nice, tight fit. Possibly the most complex plane ever built. Oh, President Nixon even wants to see it in ribs. That's a lot of ribs. Now that dry fit may seem like it's, a waste of an evening, but in this case I don't think it is, because when I get to actually do the gluing and the setting of the wing, this is going to be time well spent. See, I never had this all put together in one spot like this. And now I know the parts do fit, they fit relatively accurately, and what I want to do is I want to make up a little fixture that's exactly the thickness of a rib, an inch minus a rib, because that fixture is then going to set, I'm going to jig the body up
and the spar at exactly 90 degrees, and then I can lay one rib end at a time and get them all exactly 90 degrees. And I haven't really exactly decided how I want to do that. This is all part of the thing of, I guess, figuring out as you go along. But once it's figured out, you're finished. And I think this is going to, the leading edge looks like it's going to lay right in there, right in place. I'll be able to lay that in. I have the body on a flat table with a reference line. And I'm glad I spent the time tonight to lay this out. So the next job tomorrow, or the next time I get to work on this, is going to be to make up that 90-degree tool that I can use to set up the ribs.
That is a lot of ribs. Remember, when the light is shining off all those ribs and off the roundels and off the invasion stripes or off the whatever.
And one of the options I wanted to leave myself was the fact that I might want to use a rod to line everything up. I still don't know if I want to use a rod, but I still have that option to use the rod. In fact, looking at how this laid out, I think I'll take advantage of the fact that I have that hole for the rod to do the alignment on. Again, a lot of nice little choices. And I have a center line on one side of every rib. I can reference off of that onto the table. And it's having these choices and having these options that makes this well, I hope. Well, keep in mind, I want this to be as light as it can be, as strong and as accurate, all at the same time. And I want to be hopefully looking at maybe the next 10 years of looking at this, 9, 10 years, not just one season and out. This is a big investment. This may be, for the age I am, it may last me for the rest of my life. A lot of things may last the rest of my life. Now you can look through the tubing. You can see this is a stainless steel rod. I got this from Joe Adamusco. And I want to pull this whole wing apart and try laying it out again with the tube in place, just to see if that's going to be one of the options I want to use. Again, the only way I'm going to know this is to just do it. Just do these dry fits. Because once I come up with the technique I want, when I actually go to do it, I want to be sure I'm not going to want to turn around and go back to Grandma's through the back door or something. Now, the other part of this that I really want to think about, I want to think some more about, is how I'm going to get that belt crank in there. And by the way, one of the things I'm going to be doing is making a single dedicated video to I-beam wings and all the techniques that I've used over the years. And this, of course, will be part of that video. So if you're interested, if you're a subscriber, you already get it. If you're not a subscriber, subscribe anyway. I need the money. Okay, let me pull all these ribs off and lay this out with the rod. Now I'm going to have to make end blocks and a center block to hold this rod up in position. The first thing I want to do is get one rib on each side and get a rough idea where those blocks are going to wind up being. I see by you doing this method, it's similar to using a two-rod method, only the I-beam, the carbon beam is the front. Actually, it's doing the job of the front rod. And of course, that helps hold everything in alignment a lot nicer. I have to admit, I am happy thinking about this will add a lot of integrity to the wing as I build it. And actually, this is what's nice about doing this. As you go along, you can, well, the reality is this is how they build real airplanes, is as they build them, they come up with tooling and ways of doing it. This looks like it's going to really give me some good integrity here. This really looks like it's going to be just what I want. Now, because this is a nice tight fit on the rod, the ribs aren't all flopping around the way they were before. How nice this is, and when you're all done, you can just take the rod out. Now, the only thing this limits me to is I can't put the belt crank in until the wing is framed.
if I use this method. That's the only limiting factor here, is the bell crank.
Yeah, definitely we will be using the rod. That really made this a lot more practical.
Now we even have the chance here to put the ribs on with all notches facing the right way. In other words, that little angle cut in the front, trying to get them all lined up the right way. Much better this way, much better. And that's how all of these things seem to evolve. And that's the beauty of it, is once one person does this and figures this system out, you can check out the video and run out and do something like this without having to do all this figuring out.
Now you can see the integrity that rod adds, and that rod isn't even hooked to the table yet. We're going to make fixtures for that. But just having that rod in place, that was a big improvement, laying this out. So the next step, of course, I want to dry fit everything up. I want to dry fit all the ribs up. As I've said before, this is time consuming. But you find one little glitch in your system, and it's worth the whole day, the whole night, the whole time that you're putting into it.
I'm checking each one to make sure I have the angle, even though we're not going to glue this, we're not even close to gluing it. Still have to make up some more fixtures. But again, the point of all fixturing is, supposing next year we want to build exactly the same wing, even for a traditional stunner. Supposing Uwe Degner decides he's going to build one of these into a normal ship, or if Joe decides he's going to build one. Well, the tooling will all be there, the little jigs will all be there. You put it all in a box, somebody could run off one of these wings in a relatively short amount of time. All tooling always pays in the long run. It's always the hardest thing to convince yourself of, when you have to sit and spend a couple hours doing tooling, but then when all the parts are snapping together and the chicks are chicking.
Now keep in mind, there isn't one drop of glue holding this whole wing together. Now the next thing I have to do is figure out my height, referencing off of my blocks, and make some support blocks for that rod. I have my support blocks, and what I want to do, of course I want the center line to run right through the tube. So what I'm going to do is get a little half moon piece cut in here, do that with a Dremel tool,
And finish it by hand. And what I want to do is, I want to take sandpaper wrapped around the actual tubing we're going to use, and then fine-tune this fit until I get that exact center that I want. This is tubing that actually fits right over the other tube, and I'll take a little swipe at a time. What I did, I cut two little pieces of tubing. And of course I want this to slide right in here. Now if I go a little too far, I can just shim it, or just hold it in place and let the glue set.
Before we do a real fine tuning here, I have the block just laid up, and I'm trying to maintain that center line. And these are my pin blocks, and it looks like we're plenty close enough, that's for sure. Let's see, with that, I can pull this right out. But now, when I put the block back, I know I've just put enough clearance in here. 1 drop of CA will hold that. I don't need a lot more than that. That's just a perfect slide touch fit. Now with that just tack glued in place, now I can remove these temporarily. The front may drop down, it won't even matter because I need to get the block in the middle. Basically always doing a test that we haven't lost any of our centers. We'll make one of these for the other tip and one for the center. I do the same alignment on that. I just put a block of wood up under the fuselage here just to keep the strain off it, because I have this, when I put the wing together permanently, I just glue that right in place. Gives me a little, I'm going to need a shim in there until I get all these center lines lined up. But what this is going to allow me to do is flip the block over. You see it'll rotate. And what will happen is then when it's turned upside down, I can true it from this dimension back to the other dimension. I can do it both ways. Now I'm glad we got all this dry fitting done today. It's like a dinosaur, doesn't it? Dinosaur in a museum or something. Anyway, every time you do this, you get a little bit more familiar with the parts. And it actually comes down to the day we're going to glue this all up. It should be a relatively straightforward thing. Now I can see what I was looking at. I'm off on this one. So I'm going to need to shim this up with some shims of balsa wood. I know the back piece where the rod is perfect. So I just need to shim one side of this up, and that'll automatically true up the back because I'm rotating on the rod now. All my dimensions are going to come off the rod. You can see I need roughly 1/16 of an inch shim. Now I can just add as many shims as I need here until I get this dimension. That looks like it's too much. Whoops. So I'll take one of the 16ths out, three 1/16ths, and make one out of 32nd wood. Now once I know how many shims I need toward the back, I'll just glue them all together and this will make for one nice neat shim. I can trim it all off. I have the shim, which I hope will be one piece just for the whole fixturing of the ship in this dimension. And it can't come apart, that's the nice part. And I will use the pin spotter to see that we're perfectly level. Both sides. What's nice about doing this is you're basically just using up scrap balsa and just tack this in place. Repeat the same thing for the front shim. Now I do a walk around here. Make sure I have that center line everywhere I go. And then I'm going to pull this apart. And I just pull the ribs away, you know. I want to be sure I have this
in every dimension. Now the next step, and it's probably going to be the last thing I'm going to be able to do today, is to take the whole thing apart, and we'll be ready to fit up the rest of the pieces. But what we're going to do is we're going to be making a totally, try to get most of it on one tape, in fact, totally separate tape of all the construction of the ring, and that'll probably be coming up tomorrow, starting tomorrow. We got all a little shimming done. The only thing left to do is set up a little tool for lining up the ribs. It shouldn't be any problem. We have all the center lines. Keep in mind what's happening is we want to get the fuselage plane, that center line, and the center of the whole leading edge, center of the trailing edge, everything in one plane off of the flat glass table. Now see, when I took these off, I slid them all off in one pile, and you can see I've got a couple. These I have incorrect, and this one is one of them that's incorrect. I want to get that angle. In fact, I'm going to mark that with a colored pen so I don't get that on wrong when I go to assemble this permanently. And I have all of those lined up. Now, what I had forgotten is I already had a mark on the back. I just forgot that I had it. When I made match sets of inner and outer ribs. But you can see how nice these ribs are laid out. There won't be a lot of block sanding to get these guys treed up. Put a little extra, a little line on there, just that'll get sanded off for my own reference. So when I lay these on, keep in mind I want all of those notches facing the right way. The nice thing about this when you're all done, a really nice way to confine the rod. I want to be gentle about taking these off now. I want to go ripping them right off. Again, this is just for my reference, and this will get sanded right off. But I know when I get in the heat of battle here trying to put this together, I know you tend to forget these little things. This will help me remember. Not that anything would help. Gincona wouldn't help me remember. Okay, so we have two sets of ribs. You have all that templating made up. The only thing we need to make yet is the little material to space the ribs. Okay, I put the little copper bushing in the center so I wouldn't forget to do that. And this looks like it's going to be a really nice way to make a ring. Now I want to get this back into position. Really kind of excited about doing this because again, I don't know that anybody has ever done this, let alone all Windy. Anyway, we got all our shims. Everything checks out here. We've done our dry fitting. And what we're going to wait for, rather than rush this, we're going to wait for a day that we can get a major part of it done in one session. What will happen is once I get in the swing of things doing this, I really want to get it. I don't want to stop in the middle of laying out one ring and have to go empty a dumpster or fix a pipe or something. And again, I hope you got some good ideas on the tape. You see, ideas like this is a building block. Once you learn this technique, you can use it. You can use other ways. There's always lots of good ways to make fuselages. There's always a lot of good ways to make wings. And what you want to really do is sort through them and pick out the way that's best for you. Now, even in the course of laying this out, looking at this rod method, and basically I'm going to give Joe Adamusco the full credit for laying this out, the full credit for the ribs, the full credit for the design. This really is starting to really get me excited about seeing it in one piece and get the ring tips on and everything and start making the flaps. It's coming. This is actually, today is the first day it really starts to look like an aeroplane. this long preparation of making a kit and making parts, getting parts that interchange and fit, and then one day comes along and they all start to go together to become a real airplane, to become a Spitfire, and add this guy to our Air Force. And boy, when they're together and they're finished and they're sitting in your rack ready to go flying, it's a feeling that's hard to describe. And here's the guy that made this whole project possible. And we really look forward to the flying season's coming, Middlesex is coming. And boy, there's nothing like having a bunch of these Spitfires out on the runway. Nice, warm, breezy day, and not having to be back home to do any maintenance on the house. It's a wonderful feeling. Joe, thanks for all your help. This is really starting to shape up. I know, it's just nothing like a Spitfire.